Right, in this video we're going to talk about the number E. Right, E is one of those very special numbers that's used in mathematics a lot. So this video is just kind of explaining where that number comes from and a little bit about why it's important. So E, the definition of the number E is the number that the expression 1 plus 1 over n raised to the nth power approaches as n becomes large. Right, now when you get into calculus, there's something in calculus called a limit. Which when you apply a limit to this, it kind of makes the definition a little bit more precise and a little bit more clear. But basically what we're saying is we take this expression, 1 plus 1 over n raised to the nth power, as we plug in bigger and bigger numbers for n, the overall value that we get, it keeps increasing, but it increases in a limited way, right? The values approach a certain number, and that number that they approach, we define to be E. All right, so we give that number a special name because it comes up so much in mathematical applications to real life situations. We gave that number a special name. Not we, like I wasn't involved in that, but mathematicians gave that number a special name, which they call it E. And I don't know exactly why they chose the letter E to represent it. It could be for exponential, because that number E is actually used as the base of exponential functions that we use to model a lot of real-life situations. So that might be the reason for choosing the letter E to represent this number, although I'm not 100% certain on that. That's just my best guess as to why they chose the letter E. All right, so anyway, here's a table of values just to kind of show you what I was just talking about. Right, so the values of n and then the value of the expression 1 plus 1 over n to the nth power. So if I plug in n equals 1 into this expression, I just get 2. Right, 2.000, just the whole number 2. If I plug in n equals 100, I get 2.70481. If I plug in n equals 10,000, I get 2.71815. Now these are not the complete numbers, right? These are going to be irrational numbers. So actually no, they're not going to be irrational numbers, but this is not the entire it's not the entire number there. It's just rounded off to a certain number of decimal places. Right? When I plug in n equals 1 million, I get 2.71828. Right, so I can see as I plug in bigger and bigger numbers for n, the values I get do keep getting bigger, but they don't increase without bound. Right, there is a bound to it. There's a limit to how much they increase. It goes from 2 to 2.704 to 2.71815, 2.71828. Right, so it's still getting bigger, but you have to go down now to the 4th decimal place to see how it changes, and that's jumping from 10,000 to a million. Right, so again, the numbers keep on growing, but there is a boundary, there's a limit to how much they grow, and that limit is the number E. Right, E is approximately equal to 2.718281828 459045235 ... E is an irrational number, so this string of decimals here just keeps on going forever. There's no pattern to it, there's no repetition, it never stops. Right. Kind of like the number pi is an irrational number, the 3.14 and so on. It's not just 3.14. It goes on forever. E is the same type of number. It's an irrational number. Now, for my classes, I don't make students memorize the value of E because that's ridiculous. I mean, your teacher might if they're a horrible person. But just to have a working knowledge of what E is, just like we say pi is about 3.14, pi is not equal to 3.14. That's just an approximation of it, so we can work with it, and it's kind of, we have an idea of what it's equal to. Well, for E, if you remember that E is approximately 2.718 or even just 2.72, those are good approximations, just so you have some knowledge of, when you see E in a problem, oh, that's about 2.72. It's not just some mystery number like, oh, E, this is this weird thing. It's approximately 2.72 or 2.718 if you can handle that extra decimal place there. Right, so that's the value of the number E. Right, and like I said, this number is used a lot as the base of exponential functions that are used for modeling a lot of real life situations. They're used in population growth, radioactive decay, compound interest, and bank accounts and things like that. All kinds of different applications that we have using that number E as the base of our exponential function, which is why it's so important that this weird number here that we get from this weird expression and plugging in bigger numbers for n. You might say, well, who cares about that? Like some weird expression and plugging in big numbers. Who cares that it equals this number here? But it comes up so much that it became important. So that's an explanation of where the number E came from, the definition of it, the approximate value of E. Oh, and I should show you this. in your calculator, if you have a graphing calculator or probably in a scientific calculator as well, you probably have an E button. On my calculator, if you look above the division key there, I don't know if you can see it with the glare, but above the division key, there's like a little blue letter E. So if I do second and then hit that button, right, it brings up E, and if I hit enter, it gives me 2.718281828, which is the first, I don't know, however many, 9 or 10 decimal places of the number E, right? So your calculator has that number stored to a certain number of decimal places, just like your calculator has the number pi stored into it. That gives you a clue as how important this number is. If it was useless, your calculator wouldn't have it stored in there. They wouldn't waste the memory on it, right? So that's how you can find that number in your calculator when you need it. And if you have a different type of calculator, it's probably in there somewhere. You just have to kind of search for it. All right, so that's the definition of the number E, the approximation for it. I'm going to do another video where I talk about the exponential function e to the x power. So make sure you check out that video also to get like the full story of this number E and why it's so important.